In today's episode here in the art studio, we're going to be making an awesome order for a great customer. Now, I'm super excited about this content video. Not only was I excited about the actual artwork we're going to be creating here, but I was also excited about just the overall theme. Now, the order that we're going to be creating today is a set of custom Futhark Runes. Now, I have not created this theme in general, but I have created quite a few of these sets in the past, and I do sell those on my shop. So you can always check those out later. Now, the order today is going to be centered around a Dungeons & Dragons campaign. Now, this order of Futhark Runes is going to be used as an item in a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, and the theme of this is going to be Ice Frost Dragon. Now, Ancient Frost Dragon, if you would like to add that Ancient in there. Now, this is super exciting. Again, we're going to be using a few different types of mediums to create just a really fun set of runes for the customer. So let's go ahead and break out some resins, some plastics, as well as some paints, and let's get started in this awesome order for this great customer. All right, let's get into this awesome art content. Now, we're going to be creating, again, a Dungeons & Dragons themed order here. Now, we're going to be using my handy-dandy, already made, already prepared silicone mold of all my 24 set Futhark Runes. You can find that in its own individual video and playlist in my YouTube channel. You can find that. The whole sculpting, the casting, the mold making, all that fun stuff is out there. Now we're going to go ahead and do a color swatch here of some different Tim Holtz inks that I have in stock for what color blue ice runes we want to make. Now we're going to be making two different types of runes for this order. One is going to be a solid plastic, one is going to be an epoxy pour. Also, obviously, wear your PPE here. We have a silicone cup here, and we're going to be using some smaller medicine cups using Flynn sister epoxy to measure out a total of 60 milliliters of epoxy. It's quite a bit, but it's not enough to do all 24. Again, we just want enough to make just a few of these epoxy runes just to create a nice diversity of runes in this order. It's just going to be very fun, very laid back, and when they're all mixed together, it's going to be really cool in the finished effect. Now we're going to go ahead and pour A of both options here into individual medicine cups. We're not going to pour B in until we're ready to really start activating the epoxy. I could let these completely sit in the medicine cups for hours and they would still be okay to come back to if I needed to. So we'll go ahead and get a second medicine cup here and we'll pour the second batch. That's the 30 milliliters in each, combined to be 60. There we go, finishing up that pour there. Make sure you roll the top so it kind of rolls back into the container there and we don't get any kind of waste dripping down the outside of the container. Again, that is some Flynn sister epoxy. Great epoxy for majority of your needs, and it is my go-to. I am affiliated with them. You can use my code BStudios to get a discount on that if you want to try that out. It's very fun and is free of VOCs, which is actually really good. It doesn't have much of a smell at all, and it's better for you than a lot of epoxies out there. Now we're going to go ahead and get ready to mix up the epoxy here. Now it doesn't really make sense to mix them individually in their own medicine cups. That doesn't really serve a purpose. So we're going to go ahead and pour all batches, like both layers of A and B of each individual medicine cup into the larger silicone bowl here, or container. And we're going to go ahead and mix it there. Now you may be asking yourself, well, why didn't you just pour it into the silicone cup at the get-go instead of using two medicine cups? The reason for which is sometimes the lines on the outside of that very opaque medicine cup or silicone beaker or bowl is just really hard to see. And because it's so opaque, it's really hard to see the clear liquid coming up to the lines. And I don't want to overshoot it or not pour enough. So that's why I do it in the medicine cups, which is has really good clear sides, and I can easily see my measurements as I'm pouring them out. The closer to like the 50% of each one you can pour into the cup, the better the overall mixture. If it's slightly off, usually you can get away with it not having any kind of affecting qualities as far as it not curing up properly, but I still don't like to risk it. If I can get perfect 50 by 50, then I'll try to do that. Of course, the more you work with epoxies, the better and better you'll become at working with some of these. Depending on what you're making as well, depends on the leniency of what you can get away with some of these pours that you're making. As you can see here, it's very, very milky here. We're going to go ahead and mix this up until we get it fully casted out here and mixed up. Now, we don't worry about bubbles too much here. I'm not stressing bubbles because I want them to look like they're kind of like cured up or frozen pieces of ice, right? So we know that we're going to tone the epoxy mixture, but we want to make sure that it looks like the ice has frozen into the shape of the runes. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and decide on our color swatch here. What color do you like the most out of all of these? I know that we're going to use probably ultramarine. No, let's use how about glacier? As the very first one here, it's a light blue color, and we're only going to use literally, guys, literally one drop. One drop is going to give us that clear, icy blue color that we're looking for. We don't want it to be super thick and opaque to where you can't see through the runes. The goal is that you can see light through them, and it just looks really cool, like it's frozen ice, okay? So there we are. We're going to go and mix this up. Very satisfying. Make sure to scrape the sides as well as the bottom to make sure we get that perfect mixture there. We don't want any of those little streams of A or B to be on the sides or on the bottom of the cup to where it doesn't cure up properly when you're pouring it into your runes. There's nothing worse than having a half-cured rune and then having the other part really sticky and nasty. I'm going to heat this up just ever so slightly just to increase the viscosity of it, and it's going to make it a little bit easier to pour. It also pulls a few of those micro bubbles, not many, I'm not really worried about it, to the very top. Alrighty, so what we'll go ahead and do is pull this mold over into the center of the camera view here, and we're going to go ahead and get ready to pour this. Now, I'm really using the silicone little beaker here because I want an easy pour and control as I pour this into these little ports for the runes. We'll go ahead and scrape off this popsicle stick. We really just don't need it anymore. We don't want to waste any of that material, so make sure you scrape it off real good and save all that nice epoxy. Alright, so with that scraped off there and the residuals put back in the container, we're going to start pouring this in a very nice, slow, controlled manner. Now we're going to start off in a real-time pour, and then we'll slowly start to evolve into a time-lapse here as we kind of pour out all the 60 milliliters that we have created here. Again, we have one drop of ink in this entire pour. And as you can see with the color of the blue there, it really does go a long way. Now, I am doing a slow pour, and we do this also because we can eliminate a few of the bubbles. Because the molds of the runes are so narrow, sometimes it's hard for those bubbles to escape anyways. But as I stated earlier in the video, in the content here, that I'm not really too worried about the bubbles, and I think that it even accents these even more when there are a few little bubbles here and there. It makes it look more like ice, and I like that kind of like look that it's giving. Continuing here, we're going to start to work into a 6-time time lapse here as we pour out the residual. We're going to jump around the mold here. I don't want to kind of keep it in one particular area. We're going to do just a random assortment of different sized runes because each one is sculpted slightly different. You can get a lot of different variations in sizes and lengths and ends to the bones themselves because these are finger bone runes, as it were. Now, one thing you'll notice, even as professional artists as we are, we still make mistakes, we spill stuff, we make a mess, and that's just part of the enjoyment of the creation process. Sometimes you do something and it just doesn't turn out the way you want. I kept missing the hole here, and then once you miss it one time and you pour it over the hole, it really doesn't sink down into the void. It kind of sits on top and creates like a suction. So I had to wipe that away and then pour it again. It's part of the process. It is what it is. I have gloves. That's why we have them. Go ahead and throw these away, and then I'll get some new gloves out for the next stage. All right, you guys. So the next stage of the process is actually going to be some smooth on Smoothcast300. Now this is like a two-part polyplastic, and I've absolutely fell in love with not just the brand but the overall material itself. I have tons of projects later on layered up, ready to go. We just got to create them, right? One of the biggest projects I'm working on now is the Peregrine Falcon, so you can see that later on, and that's being casted out of this product here. It's like a plastic pour medium. It's really cool, and I absolutely love the finished look it gives. So props to Smooth On for this product here. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of jump around the mold here. I'm just going to pour the remnants of this in 30 milliliter segments or pours until I get all of the remainder runes filled out to perfection. These are really great. Now these are a fast set, so they will cure up within about 20 to 30 minutes to the touch. But just remember that those will still be quite warm as they fully cure up completely. And if you touch them with pliers or try to remove them earlier than they're really ready and fully cured, then you can get like a lot of indentions and marks on the outside edges of those bones as you pull them out of the silicone mold. So a lot of times I'll give this a full 24 hours to let these fully set up completely. And that will also give the resin or the epoxy time to set up as well. Now, while we are waiting for that Smooth On Smoothcast 300 fast set, as well as the Flynn Sister two-part epoxy regular to set up overnight, we're going to go ahead and incorporate just a fun special item into the order. I told the customer I was going to incorporate something special just as a fun thing to add to the package. I'm super excited that they're really one of the first customers to order a D&D item from me, and that's something that I'd really like to break into in the future, whether that be actual board tiles or buildings out of foam. It was just really kind of cool, and it really excited my artistic freedom with this order. So let's go ahead and jump into a narration of just a fun story that I put together. Let's tell a story of adventure, younglings. Now gather by the fire and let me tell you a story from the tome of adventure. Now the title of this adventure is The Frost-Bound Accord. Very ominous, very cold. Alright. The silver moon hung low over the town of Greystone. Its silver light spilled over the moss-covered roofs and flickering off the sign of the Harpy's Flagon, a crooked little tavern at the edge of the world. The rickety building cast warm shadows across the cobblestone and dirt street. Inside, by the hearth's last embers, 4 figures hunched over an old wine-stained map. Callum, the wiry rogue, traced a finger over the parchment, eyes gleaming with mischief. Beside him, Elandra, a mage with frost-kissed eyes and a tome of spells chained to her hip, whispered arcane words under her breath. Bram, the warrior, heavy in plate and heavier in ale, thumped his mug down and said, "If the cave is real, let's stop talking and start marching." And finally, watching from the shadows was Siren, the harper, a bard and emissary of the secret order that kept balance between the realms. She listened to whispers others missed, and it was she who had heard the tale first. "A cave of endless treasure," she said softly, "guarded by spires of ice, wind-blown caverns, and a dragon as old as the mountains below the snow. Rumor is 3 eggs lie atop a pedestal of ancient make. Not gold is the true prize, but what sleeps within, for which dragon eggs were a magical source that could be used to enchant magic items as well as create powerful spells. They agreed that night, bound by fate, gold, and curiosity, they would follow the tale." Chapter 1. Runes of the Road. The next morning, under the rising sun, Siren activated their traveling runes. Small, inscribed, aged finger bones, blessed by ancient arcana. The most common use of is the path revealed, but under extreme need, teleportation. As with many things, the knowledge has faded with time, and the creation of the runes is now a mystery. As the bones glow with the blue light, the runes revealed a shimmering path only the caster could see. Across tundras, craggy highlands, and forgotten battlefields they followed. They battled wind wraiths in the hollow of whispers, avoided bog sirens in the dread root marsh, and found shelter in the ruined temple of a forgotten Pathian. It was Alandra who deciphered the ancient script scrawled in the frozen stone, confirming the path to the Frost Spear caverns, where their destiny lay. Chapter 2. The Cave of Teeth and Ice. The entrance was carved into the side of a jagged mountain, hidden beneath a curtain of enchanted snowfall. The runes pulsed as they approached, parting the fresh powdered snow to reveal the jagged mouth of the cave. Inside, darkness and cold pressed on them like a weight. Crystals jutted from the walls like spears. The icy air pitched and pulsed as they climbed lower into the throat of the icy void, like a breathing beast. Not before long, they were already chilled to the bones, and the pulsing air sapped their energy. Only when they called for a rest in a cavern cave then the first foes came. Ice spiders, massive glassy creatures with fangs that dripped freezing venom, descended from the ceilings. Ram swords sang steel as Callum danced through their legs, daggers flashing. Alandra cast flame and frost in tandem, while Siren's song echoed through the tunnels, bolstering courage and stealing fear. Deeper they went, they came upon a shrine guarded by gem-encrusted golems, their fists like boulders. The battle was desperate. Bram shattered one with a war cry and a leaping blow. Alandra lured another into an ice pit conjured from ice. Callum took a brutal hit to the ribs, nearly dying. But Siren's music wrapped around him and mended bone and soul. The sound of ice cracking stilled everything. The tunnel began to shift. Ice began to fall. The adventurers leaped headlong into the soft blue glow of the cavern ahead. The tunnel collapsed in an avalanche behind them, sealing the pulsing wind and deafening silence. But this was not just a cavern. It was the Grand Cavern. Chapter 3. The Dragon's Sanctum. Finally, the Grand Cavern. With silent motion, they moved into the cavern, the feeling of watchers on them, it lit by a haunting hell light. They emitted from the icy spears, towering like frozen trees. Beneath them were mounds of treasure, gold, rubies, sapphires, mithril blades, and relics of fallen empires. But at the center, on a raised pedestal, lay three shimmering eggs, silver and blue, radiant with life and magic. They moved as one towards the center of the chamber. There was no sign of an ice dragon. Siren whispered, "The runes won't work here." As they moved between mounds of treasure, they slipped trinkets into bags and pockets alike. At the bottom of the center, everyone paused and nodded. Callum, the most nimble of the group members, climbed the rise with soft feet. The moment Callum ascended the pedestal, reached for one of the silver eggs, the temperature dropped. The dim light skipped, and the pulsing air returned. From above, a roar shattered the silence. A Rulgar, the ancient ice dragon, shifted from its clasp on the ceiling. The light cast through the surrounding ice hid her presence. She descended like an avalanche in truth. Scales like moonlit glaciers, eyes like frozen stars, wings that whipped snow into wisps. Her voice boomed like ice shattering. "How dare you touch what is not yours?" Ice burst off stone in chunks. The ground heaved with frost as the battle began. Chapter 4. The Frostbound battle. It was chaos. Bram charged, blade blazing with heat from the fire rune. Arulgar bellowed and met him head on, claws and fang against steel and grit. The clash shook the cavern. Alandra unleashed torrents of lightning and fire, trying to pierce the dragon's icy hide. The mage's eyes glowed with power, her body racked with the force of her own spells. Siren danced through the chaos, sound echoing, songs singing, illusions flaring in the dragon's vision, and magic twisting the fate in their favor. Callum scaled the icy spires like a shadow, leaping from pillar to pillar, throwing daggers and trying to find a weakness in the dragon's armor. Arulgar's breath froze the air, turning Bram's shield into brittle shards. Callum was flung into a wall unconscious. Alandra suffered a gash along her side that turned instantly to crystals. Bram fell to one knee, frostbite creeping up his arm. But Ulgar was wounded too, scales torn, one wing dragging, blood like liquid diamonds dripping from its flank. Both sides, gasping, frozen, and broken, paused. The will to fight faded, buried beneath pain and exhaustion. Siren stepped forward, looking at her defeated group, her voice soft. We did not come for blood. We sought treasure, yes, but none of us knew what we'd really find. Arulgar looked to the pedestal and saw it at last. One egg shattered. A silence fell, heavier than any snow. The ancient beast let out a mournful cry that echoed through the ice and stone mountain alike. Chapter 5. A Dragon's Grace. I will not suffer you. Take the others, Olgar said, voice howling. We seek the eggs no longer, Alandra whispered, cradling her wound. The dragon turned to them, eyes blue, piercing their souls, and instead of rage there was weariness, weariness reflected in both parties. You fought hard, as thieves, yes, but still nonetheless. The grief is a pain I cannot give to the cold. I grant you a gift, so I never see your kind again. Arulgar reared back, breath glowing with cold magic, and exhaled a gale of frost over the bone runes in Siren's bloodied hand. They shimmered and turned into the purest ice and pearl white snow, but did not melt. These runes, she rumbled, now hold the power of instant passage. Any door, any dungeon, any frozen tomb you may leave, and you will never fear the cold again, but you will never return here. Siren bowed deeply, bloodied and tears in her eyes. We swear it. Epilogue. The price of adventure. The adventurer pressed the casting runes into her bloodied hand. A flash of icy light enveloped them, and in an instant they stood outside, atop the frozen cliffs of the mountain, battered and bruised but alive. As the wind howled around them, they took the last look at the mountain behind them, where a dragon's mournful cry still echoed faintly through the stone and the snowpack. They had gold and mithril, and a tale to last 100 winters, but each of them knew the truth. They had found treasure, they had caused a loss, and they had left a piece of themselves behind. Thus ends the tale of the Frostbound Accord, where blades clashed, magic sang, and the hearts were forever marked by ice, snow, and bones. I hope you have enjoyed this story by the fire with me, but as most stories do, sometimes they just put me to sleep. Be sure to like and subscribe. Back to the art at hand. Thank you for geeking. Thanks for geeking out with me on that little story. I really did enjoy creating that. Not only just writing the story, but also using YouTube to create all those AI images that I incorporated into that little clip there. It's very fun, and I really enjoyed using just some of my storytelling there in my content. Even if it's just something simplistic as just a little story in the middle of the content, it was just really fun, and it was also a way for me to tell my own little story of what I would do if it was my D&D campaign. I really don't know how the customer is going to incorporate the runes into their overall D&D campaign. They gave me a generalistic idea of what it was in just a summary when we were chatting over the text dialogue through my shop. However, these things are turning out absolutely incredible. So let's go ahead and get into the workstation. We're going to go ahead and pull them out of the silicone mold and demold them, and then we'll actually start working on them, fine-tuning them to perfection before we can package them up here towards the end of the video. Let's get to it, guys. All right. Let's jump into this awesome order here. Now, this, again, is for the Frost Dragon runes, if you jump forward in the video here. Now, we are at the point where the casting plastic as well as our epoxy is completely cured up inside our silicone mold. We're going to go ahead and demold these one at a time and put them in two separate piles. Now, I usually just use a pair of pliers to pull these out. Now, I did not pour these with like a sprue on the silicone mold, specifically because I really didn't care. Honestly, I wanted each top of the runes specifically to be tailored custom. So what that means is that when I put the Dremel to the top of the rune, I can kind of shape it in different ways at times, and it just allows me to give a little bit of diversity to each individual rune, if that makes any sense. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm pouring a little bit of water over the first rune that we pulled out, just to showcase what it could potentially look like with a little bit of clear coat on it. I do plan to go over these again with a protective layer because I do plan to inlay some paint into the actual runes themselves. So they look very like a matte finish right now, but I'm really happy with how they've turned out. Maybe in the future I'll incorporate a little bit of glow pigment into these, maybe, as long as it doesn't look too powdery. Now, of course, the second pile here, it turned out absolutely amazing as well. And again, I don't want to include any kind of sprue in that because I want the top of each rune to be a little bit diversified when I sand those down with the Dremel. However, that Smooth on Smoothcast 300 bright white Fastset is really what I've been falling in love with. It is absolutely an amazing product, and I've been making some much larger projects here recently on my YouTube channel, as well as I have a lot lined up in the future. So stay tuned for some of those much larger scale projects coming out. What we'll do is we're going to go ahead and jump into a split screen here. Ba-bam! On the left-hand side, we're going to be working on the Smoothcast 300 bright white rune, and those are going to be an opaque pearl. So we're going to start off with some folk art metallic pearl white. We're going to do around 2 layers of that. So as we're doing that, on the right-hand side, I'm working with a small Dremel here. I use different Dremel tools depending on how I feel, but most importantly, it just gives us a nice smooth taper to the top of each individual rune. And so I'm just kind of happy with the overall shape. I also don't want to leave any massive burrs or anything like that. I'm going to spray that off with a little bit of water there. And what I'll do is when I finish the mass amount of the epoxy runes, what I'll do is I'll put them in just a water bag, a bag full of water, like a Ziploc bag or something, and I'll just completely just clean them by just like continuously moving them around inside the bag. And then just let them do a nice good soak. And then you could also come over with like a nice soft scrub brush or anything like that to kind of get rid of any kind of raised spots or any kind of like excessive matte finish inside the rune. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and paint the ones on the right-hand side of the epoxy runes with an inlay of pearl that we're using on the left-hand side. So we've got on the left-hand side 2 layers of pearl paint. Now we're coming in with a little bit of a light blue here. This is also still a metallic, and we're just going to use this very sparingly just to give a little bit of diversity in the white paint, and it gives us a little bit of simulation of snow or icy feel. And that's really what this kind of order or this listed item here on Etsy is. It's the Ice and Snow, a Frost Dragon rune set, which is pretty cool. Now, of course, we're going to go ahead and give the runes on the right a nice little thinner layer of UV resin over each individual side, only enough just to give it a nice film, and then we're going to hit it with a UV light here. Watch that go round and round and round as we finish out painting on the left-hand side. As you can see, I'm painting the left-hand side with that nice blue, pushing it into the crevices, and then just doing a nice wipe to make sure we're getting kind of those raised portions of paint where the paint would just naturally not fall into those. Or if you were to use the bones a lot in your travels, no matter what kind of campaign or adventures you may be on, or role play or LARPing or whatever you may be doing with the runes, we want to make sure that they look very realistic. So the outside edges of those runes would just get a lot of wear and tear. So they would not naturally have that inlaid color. We're also going to do a little bit of color shifting paint on the left-hand side. And this is just very sparingly so that we don't cover up all that nice light blue, but we want to bring a little bit of brightness to those blue layers. And the color shifting paint doesn't completely cover up those blue layers, but it does give a little bit of a nice color variation. Makes it a little bit deeper, makes it a little bit easier to see, even if it's just a little bit subtle. On the right hand side, as you can see, that it looks a lot smoother now, and we're going to go ahead and hit it with a little bit more light, and we'll do that consistently throughout the entire life of those UV resins while they're in my studio. Here you can see there's a few of them on the UV resin turntable. How cool is that? That's pretty cool. It's almost like as if they're glowing with magic. Now, what I did with the pearl runes, I did give those a layer of protective spray paint. Usually, as long as you wait for the acrylics on those items to fully cure up, 12 to 24 hours, so that way they're not tacky or sticky. If you go over them with a Rust-Oleum clear coat, maybe 2 times perhaps, it really does give a great protective layer on both sides, just so that way it has a little bit of protective layer over the paint, so that way if somebody were to really use them heavy, hardcore in LARPing or role play, then they just don't deteriorate and the paint starts to chip off in any way. Now here they are all mixed together, and this is what they're designed for, is to be all mixed together so that it looks like there's snow and ice runes. Now I do offer these now on my Etsy shop, whether you want to get them just epoxy layer version, all epoxy ice version, or perhaps even maybe just all pearl or a mixture of the two. If you do decide to get a mixture of the two, you can find the link in my description below, first thing. You of course would get a variety. There is no specific rhyme or reason how or which ones I make into ice or snow. Look at these things as they get casted here. How cool is that, you guys? Now make sure you stay tuned for some other videos in the near future. I do have other ones out as well. I have a forest theme one, which is like a wood teak with moss covering. And of course, my most popular one of these is actually aged bone, so that's pretty cool. I also made a purple one here recently, like a metallic purple. And what we're going to do now is actually we're going to go into a packaging video. Very simplistic, but I thought it'd be kind of cool to incorporate a little bit of the packaging into this end portion of the video for the customer. That'd be kind of cool. I'm sure they're going to watch this video later on down the road, and they'll kind of get to see their item being created and packaged. Now, as I said before, while we're packaging these into their individual baggies, at one point in time, I used to just package them in singular bags. So each rune had its own bags, and I was just wasting way too much plastic, I'll be honest, and I just hated that. I really only did it because I was afraid that some of the runes would just stick together if they were in like a hot postal service van or something, or like in a box outside or something, be ready to be shipped to an address, and they get overly heated and they melt and stick to each other. That was my only fear. But sometimes we just gotta let go of fear and then just go ahead and get it done. These are really cured up, and they're protected by all the layers that we put on them. So I really don't have those types of fears that I had originally when I first started making these. Now, each one has about 5 in each bag, and they're just enough to where the runes can easily move around. We're also going to incorporate a small, treasure bag here. I don't think this bag will be necessarily enough to hold all of the runes unless they just really stuff it full, but I'm going to leave that up to the customer and their D&D campaign on whether or not or how they would like to incorporate that. As another surprise for the customer, I decided to incorporate a little bit of snow flocking or snow magic in this project here. So I used a little bit of snow flocking, that's very fine flocking. We're also going to incorporate some shininess, which is some glitter. So I'm going to incorporate a little bit of pearl glitter here. We're also going to use one called Tears of My Enemy, which is a nice silver chunky. And then we're also going to incorporate a little bit of vibrant blue, which is actually called Cabana. So we'll also add that into the project as well. Now we're going to go ahead and give this a nice little stir with a popsicle stick that I'm actually grabbing onto the left-hand side now. And then I quickly find out that it's just not adequate to mix in a tiny medicine cup. So as you guys know, I like to show my little mishaps and mistakes with the good, right? So of course, as I'm mixing this here, it's just because I'm being gentle, it's taking too long, and I don't want to get it absolutely everywhere. So we are going to go ahead and transfer this into a plastic baggie as well. So we will just be using just one more plastic bag here. As I stated earlier, I don't want to use too much plastic bags and waste when I ship things. But of course, this will be just bag number 6. So we're going to go ahead and pour this into a plastic baggie, and then we're going to give it another good mix here. Now, the glitter that we added is just a small amount in comparison to the fine snow flocking that I had already added to the bag here. But it's just going to give a little bit of shine to the glitter if the customer were to have, say, a light or something above the snow pack, if they decide to use this in their campaign project here, or their game, right? The gameplay. So we've incorporated this. I've got it sealed up pretty nice and tight. There's always a possibility that some could leak away. So what we'll do is we're actually going to probably put this inside the cloth baggie, and then that will be the home. So instead of this just being free floating, we're actually going to put it inside another bag. You can see a little bit of that glitter kind of popping through some right there a little bit, but it's just supposed to be very subtle. But we did add a little bit of that chunkiness into it, so some of those chunk flakes will also reflect a little bit more light than, say, some of the fine glitters that we added, whether it be the blue or the pearlescence. So very nice. Our order is coming together here now. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and take this, and we're going to put it inside of the baggie. Now, of course, we're going to go ahead and add these into our shipping bag here. Of course, there are, like I said, individually wrapped, so each one will have its own little breathing room inside of the overall shipping bag. So we're going to put the runes in to begin with. Slide those into position there. It's really hard to see these go. I'm really in love with the overall finish of these runes, and I look forward to making another set in the near future, hopefully. So as we go into wintertime, who knows, maybe we'll get some more orders for these. Go ahead and put that in there. As you can see, we're sliding it into the bag. Fun stuff. Plenty of room. We're going to put our glitter snow magic mix into the little canvas bag here. I used to have a lot of bags that used to be a lot more coarse texture, but I just really can't find those anymore. I actually purchased these from Hobby Lobby, and I was like, man, they'll be fine for their overall project if they decide to even use these in their campaign there. So we'll go ahead and put that in there. Now you may notice that something is indeed missing here. Yeah, you're right. You're right. We have forgotten to put our frost dragon inside this bag. Yes, we have. You know I like to share my mistakes with the good, right? So I just sealed that bag. Oh my goodness. So what I will have to do is slice open this bag, and we're going to go ahead and put this in the item. So this is just that middle magnet that I had incorporated as another surprise for the customer, because I felt very just appreciative that they had ordered something just custom and fun for my shop. So I'm going to go ahead and incorporate this in. I've also wanted to paint the dinosaur magnet into a frost dragon for a while, and because of that, they just gave me an excuse to do that. So again, it's hard to see it go, but I'm really happy with that I'm able to send this to a happy home that even after their D&D campaign, they can kind of hang that on the refrigerator or do with it what they will. Just remember that my magnets are all encapsulated, so all the magnets inside my magnets that I design are the magnets are hidden away. There are no magnets that are visible for any children to choke on, so it's all sealed away inside the actual plastic housing. As you can see here, this thing has turned out absolutely awesome, and I really do hope you enjoyed the portion of us painting that in the middle of this video. It's really cool. There's about 4 magnets inside this, and we're also able to paint it in metallics and then add the, of course, blue shimmering eye. We added the blue and the pearlescent shell around the outside edges of the actual outer shell. I kept the entire interior shell a little bit brown, and of course we incorporated a little bit of that Lagoon Tim Holtz alcohol ink in that UV resin drip, which is pretty fun. We're going to put that in the same canvas baggie. We're going to go ahead and put it back in our shipping bag, and then we'll go ahead and seal this back up as neatly as we can. And then, of course, as a courtesy, I'll probably notify the customer that I did have to slice the bag open to add one more thing in before shipping. And then what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and print a label and head on to the USPS store, and let's go ahead and get this package sent off to this awesome D&D Dungeon Master. Now, how awesome did these runes turn out, you guys? I hope you have enjoyed this overall content video. I definitely enjoyed making the set of runes. Now, these are Futhark fingerbone runes, and if you want something specific like this in a different theme or a different shape of bone, please reach out to me. I make custom artwork absolutely all the time, and I'm always looking to challenge myself to create new things. Again, this was the very first time that I've used 2-part epoxy in this silicone mold for these runes, and it turned out absolutely incredible. I'm really incorporating a lot of different ideas and things in my channel here on YouTube, as well as my art itself, and I really like to use this as just a breakaway into D&D as a different playlist or a campaign here on YouTube, as it were. So I really do hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like and subscribe, guys, and I'll catch you on the next awesome order here from Virally Studios. Later, guys.